I said that I wasn't going to read quite as much this month, but instead I've switched to audiobooks and I've got through an awful lot of them. I should probably mention that I do use the Audible app, which means that I can speed up the narration, so that means that I can get through an awful lot more. It works really well for me because it's like having a time turner. The reason that I've been listening to so many audiobooks is because I've been doing a lot more graphic design work. Which brings us to the first book that I finished, which was Design is a Job. This is by Mike Monteiro. It is a whole lot of tips and tricks on how to make it as a freelance designer or as a designer working for an agency. There was a lot of stuff in here that I found really helpful. Not all of it was new to me, but the stuff that was really helpful. Last year I read A Game of Thrones, the first in the Song of Ice and Fire series, and this month I have got into the audiobook versions. So I've listened to the second, third, fourth, and now I'm currently on the fifth book. I find that having something with a really great plot is fantastic for audiobooks, and it certainly stops me from zoning out. The narration is excellent as well, although there are a few discrepancies between the books where accents start changing. This was slightly disconcerting at first, but I did get used to the changes. I was quite confused as to why Tyrion Lannister seemed to sound Welsh, whereas his siblings didn't. And also in the later ones, his voice for Daenerys seems to change quite a bit, which is bit weird, but I think I've got used to it. I tend to still imagine the characters with the voices from the television show, which I've already seen, so maybe that's why it doesn't bother me too much. Next I listened to Gathering of Waters by Bernice L. McFadden. Steve reads books, read this last month and did a review of it, and I trust his judgment completely now. Anything that he reads and raves about is I'm almost guaranteed to really love as well. I'll link his review in the description because he does a much better job of describing the book than I would. Next up was The Purity Myth by Jessica Valenti. This is a feminist non-fiction on the concept of virginity, particularly in girls. I found this really thought-provoking, and I think it's a book that should be read much more widely. The thing that really struck me was that there isn't actually a medical definition of virginity, yet we seem to know what it means. This is one that I definitely recommend that people read, particularly if you're interested in feminism, or even if you're not, you'll probably find this educational. Next is a book by Ian McEwan. I haven't read any Ian McEwan for years now, so I thought it was about time that I read another one of his books. This was Sweet Tooth, and this was quite different to any of his other books. It's about this very bright young woman who goes through Cambridge and then gets employed by MI5. As always, McEwan does characterisation very well. I did feel invested in the characters, but the story did drag a little at times. Overall though, it came together really well, and Ian McEwan's writing is excellent as always. Then we have a physical book. This is another design book, and it is Make Your Own Luck by Kate Moras. Now this is part portfolio and part instruction manual on how to make it as a graphic designer. It's beautifully laid out, and the illustrations are lovely, as you would expect from an illustrator and designer. Her work is really bold and bright and very graphic, lots of typographic stuff going on. So this was a real pleasure to read. Although her style is very different from my own, I found a lot of inspiration in here and lots of helpful tips as well. So if you're a graphic designer and are looking for fun, brightly coloured books to read, then this is a good one. After reading Ulysses last year, I thought that it might be a good idea to go back and read A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man. I think I actually started the audiobook of this a few months ago and I just got a bit fed up with it. I finally got through the last couple of hours, but I'm a bit overjoyed, to be honest. I appreciate what he did, and this is definitely a lot more accessible than Ulysses, but I didn't actually enjoy it as much as sections of Ulysses. But that might just be because I read the two too close to each other. I'm not in a huge rush to go and read Finnegan's Wake though. The next one is On Immunity by Eula Biss. I actually listened to this one as well, but this is my mum's copy. I think that this is a pretty important book actually. It lays down the arguments about immunisation and why it's important, and basically there is no argument. It's a good idea to get immunised. She looks at it from a historical context, but she also looks at the social, the political and the economic sides of it as well. What she's saying isn't new, but I think she puts it in a way that it's really understandable and will put a lot of minds at rest. I'm almost tempted to buy a whole lot of copies of this and just give them out to people. I would say that this is a must-read for parents as well as anyone else who is interested in these topics. Then I listened to The Ultimate in Classic Crime thrillers. This was Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I really enjoyed this as well. It had great momentum. Dostoevsky does a great job of the psychological turmoil of the main character, and it's another one to tick off the BBC Top 100 list. Then I have another book that I own as a physical copy but read as an audiobook, and that's because Audible sort of threw it in front of me at a cheap price. It's a lovely book as well, so I'm quite glad to have it in real life. If you've been following my channel for a while, then you'll know that I love reading about feminism in all of its forms. And this is all about the performative side of gender. To put it really simply, you could say it's the nature versus nurture debate, but she goes into so much more than just that. Many aspects of this are autobiographical. She talks about her experience of cutting her hair short, of dressing like a boy at one point, and about her experiments with body hair. It's an excellent, informative and inspiring read, and if I ever get round to making another video about feminism, then I will talk about this then. The next book I read because the author was coming to the library where I live and was doing an event. So I thought I would go in all prepared and have the book read, but I didn't actually get it finished before the event. And this was Rick Jakowski's Lost, Stolen or Shredded. This is a book all about missing pieces of art and literature, so it was right up my alley. I studied art and literature at university, but we never really looked at the gaps, and that's what this book focuses on. He talks about Byron's lost memoirs, he talks about when the Mona Lisa got stolen, he talks about lost letters and poetry, and there's even a New Zealand example in there. Rick Jakowski is an antique bookseller, and he's also worked as a university professor. The way he writes isn't stuffy and academic, and this is definitely a book that lots of people would enjoy. And finally I finished this monster, and this is another one where I switched to the audiobook because it was on a good deal on Audible. This would have taken me a very long time to get to the end of, I think, had I not switched to the audiobook. I should probably mention what the book is. It's Alan Turing, The Enigma by Andrew Hodges, and this is the book that The Imitation Game was based upon. So we have the lovely picture of Benedict Cumberbatch on there. This is such a horrible edition. It's all shiny and it's the film cover and it makes me die slightly inside. But the text is still the same, and there's a new introduction which was written in the 21st century, which kind of puts it into context a bit more. So I watched the film The Imitation Game and I really liked it. I thought it was really well done and that the acting was superb. But I did have a few questions concerning historical accuracy, and this book answered most of them. The main difference being that it seems that Alan Turing was actually a really well-liked guy. He had friends and he got on with his colleagues, which makes me rethink the film, because in the film he's very much portrayed as this awkward, solitary genius, and I think that's a really dangerous stereotype to have. So since finishing this, I have really mixed feelings about the film. If you agree with me on any of these points, then definitely check this one out. There are some technical bits that drag on a bit. If, like me, you don't understand them, then you can sort of skim past them or zone out if you're listening as an audiobook. But besides those technical details, it was really interesting. And yes, I have a Goodreads review and it is linked in the description, so you can go and see my full thoughts there. I couldn't do my wrap up without briefly mentioning this book, which I am over halfway through. This is another one that Stephen recommended. Everything that everyone is saying about it is true, and more. I do intend to do a full review on this once I've finished it, but in the meantime, it is so engrossing and the characters are so incredibly well written. It is a very difficult read, but I feel so invested in these characters above and beyond any other book that I've read before, I think, barring maybe Donna Tartt. But yes, that's what I'm reading currently. This video has been far too long, I'm really sorry. Those are the books that I read in March. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll hopefully see you next time. Bye!